Samsaradava nalalita loka Taranaya karunya kana kana tvam Praptasya kalana gunarnavasya Vande guroshi charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasora Sena Romanchakam Vashutaranga Bhajyo Vande Guroshi Charanarvindam Shivikrahara Dhananityanana Shingaratamandiramarjanado Yuttasya bhaktam chaniyunjatopi Vande uroshi charanarvindam Chaturvidashi bhagavat prasada Sadhana tripta hari bhakta sangha Kriteva triptim bhajatassadaiva Vande guroshi charanarvindam Shiradhika Mahatavayorapara Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namnam Pratishyana Sadhana Lolupasya Vande Guroshi Charanarvindam Nikunja yuno ratikeli siddhai Yaya lipir yuktira pishaniya Tatrati dakshad ativallabhasya Vande guroshi charanarvindam Sashatari tena samasta shastre Uttasthatha bhavita eva sadvihi Kintu praboya priya eva tasya Vande guroshi charanarvindam Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam nagati kutopi ध्यायास्तु वंस्तस्य यशस्ति सान्ध्यान् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् यशोदाभियोलुकलादवमानं परमृष्टामात्यन्ततो धृतगोप्या रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्ममृजान्तम् कराम्बुजयुग्मेन शातङ्कनेत्रम् मुहुश्वासकं पात्रीरेकाङ्गकान्त स्थितग्रवदामोदरं भक्तिपदम् इति दृष्ट्वा लीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमाजन्तमाज्ञापयन्तम् तादीयेषितग्नेषु भक्तिर्जितत्वम् पुनः प्रेमातस्तं सतावृत्ति वन्दे वरं देवा मोक्षं वदिं वा न चान्यं वृणेऽहं वरेशादपि इदं ते वपूर्णात गोपालबालं सदा मे मनस्य विराष्टं किमन्ये इदं ते मूकाम्बोजम् अत्यन्तनीलैर्भृतं कुन्तलैः स्निग्धरक्तश्च गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तादरं मे मनस्य विराष्टं मलं लक्षलाभै नमो देवा दामोदर अनन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलब्धिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्ट्यातिदिनं बतानु गृहानिशमामज्ञमेध्यक्षिदृश्य कुबेरात्मा चौबद्धमूर्त्यैव यद्वत् त्वया मुचितौ भक्तिभाजकृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकामे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षिग्रहो मे स्थिदामोदरेह नमस्तेऽस्तु दाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमो राधिकायै त्वदीया प्रियायै नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकायै त्वदीया प्रियायै नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् यशोदाभियोलोकलातवमानं परामृष्टामत्यन्ततो धृतगोप्या हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Shri Radhe Jai Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya श्री दामोदर अष्टकम की जय।
Jai Om Shnupad Brahmhamsa Pradikacharya Stota Shatashish Matis Divine Grace Abharchana Vrinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Bhaktivedanta Institute Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Shnupad Brahmhamsa Pradikacharya Stota Shatashish Matis Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridasa Ki Jai. प्रेमी से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत दाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री व्रजभूमि वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम चैत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री अयोध्या धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। समावृत भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री दामोदर मासा कार्तिक मासा की जय। श्री यशोदा दामोदर की जय। श्री श्री राधा दामोदर की जय। Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Lad Daine. Hiranya Kashi Purvakshaha. Shilatanka Nakalahai. Ito Nasimha Parato Nasimha. Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasimha. Bahir Nasimha, Hidahe Nasimha. Narasimham Adim Sharanam Papravdi. Kavakara Kamala Vari Nakam Abhuda Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanapringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Buddha Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanapringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jagadisha Hare Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narasimha Dev Jaya Bhakta Pehla Jaya Bhakta Pehla Jaya Bhakta प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव।
Okay, we'll read the translations of Sri Damodara Ashtaka. To the Supreme Lord, whose form embodies eternity, knowledge, and bliss, whose earrings swing to and fro, who shines beautifully in Gokula, who quickly ran from the grinding mortar in fear of Mother Yashoda, and who was caught from behind by her, who ran faster than he, to that Supreme Lord Sri Damodara, I offer my humble obeisances. Upon seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful, and his quick breathing shook the stand of pearls on his neck, which bore 3 lines like those on a conch shell. To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodara, whose belly is bound with the ropes of his mother's pure love, I offer my humble obeisances. With these super excellent childhood pastimes, Lord Krishna drowned the residents of Gokula in pools of ecstasy. In this way, he declared to those absorbed in knowledge of his majesty and opulence, I am conquered only by my pure loving devotees. With great love, I again offer my obeisances to Lord Damodara hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, though you can award all kinds of benedictions, I pray to you neither for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor for the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor for any other such boon. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Bala Gopala in Vrindavana may ever be manifest in my heart. For what use do I have for any other boon besides this? O Lord, again and again Mother Yashoda kisses your lotus face, which is framed by locks of soft black hair tinged with red and beautified by your lips colored red like the bimba fruit. May this vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. O Supreme Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. O Damodara, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. Shower me with your merciful glances and deliver this poor ignorant fool immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. O Lord Damodara, as a baby tied to a grinding mortar, you delivered Kuvera's 2 sons from the curse of Narada and made them into great devotees. In the same way, please give me pure loving devotion for you. I long for this alone and have no desire for any kind of liberation. O Lord Damodara, obeisances unto the brilliant effulgent rope binding your belly. Obeisances unto your belly, the abode of this entire universe. Obeisances unto your dearmost beloved Srimati Radharani, and obeisances unto you, O Lord, who displays unlimited pastimes. Shri Shri Damodara Ashtakam ki jai.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilashi Je tomara sharan loy tara vancha purna hoy Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavanavasi Moraiya Vilash Vilas Kunje Diyo Vas Nayane Hrivo Sada Jugalaru Parashi E Nivedana Daro Sakiranu Kata Koro Sevadi Kara Diye Kara Nij Dasi Dina Krishna Das Koye Namo Rahoy Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Yena Basi Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Yena Basi Yani Kani Chapapani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Yani Kani Chapapani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. तुलसी महारानी की जय. वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. वृंदे देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Oh, Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire is in the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavana. My desire also grant me residence in the precious groves of Shri Vrindavana town. Thus within my vision I shall always behold the beautiful paths of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Karhodanso's virgin. Please give me the privileged devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen, lowly son of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulasi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods of Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of a spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature pursuing the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of our special ritualistic activities, offering the Veda fruity activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glory of the holy name. 10. To adopt complete faith in the chanting holy names and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna, Prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees, Lord. They are just as I trees who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. One Shri Chaitanya Shakshastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhavamaha Davakni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chantrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pradipadam Purnamita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadishi Tavakripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Disham Yaha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunijena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sataharihi Na Thanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Pavata Bhaktir Haituki Tvai Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stithaturi Satesham Vichintaya Nayanam Garata Shrutaraya Vadanam Gurgata Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapur Kada Tava Nama Grahane Bhavishati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha pravisha itam shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda vidahena me ashirishava padaratam pinnastumam adarshanam marmahatam karotuva yatha tatha va vitatatu lampato matprana nathastu sa eva na paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which ignited the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguished 5 conditional life for repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity in the large, because it expresses a rays of benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean transcendent bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grant all benediction to human beings. Thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, our kindness enables us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more taller than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to commit wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Nanda Krishna, I'm an eternal servitor. Yet somehow I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me at the one of Adam's, your lotus feet. Oh my Lord, one of my eyes be with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name. One my voice choke up, or hair is my body stand end or citation of your name. Oh Govinda, feeling of separation comes in the moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything, everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Shri Mangala Charnam prayers ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshum Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vidam Scha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namene Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Desha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namene Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daidaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktita Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupa Nuga Viruddha Pasiddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sashat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumistvam Nirdishta Sajana Priyaha Vaishnava Savabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpa Durupishcha Kripa Sindhu Pyevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishin Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Sratoro Pangor Mamamanda Matergati Masarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vindadana Kaupadumadaha Shrimad Rana Kara Singhasanasto Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Pishtaribi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsi Vata Tata Stitaha Karsham Venu Suner Gopir Gopinatha Shiyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Dadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Mangala prayers ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Parakara Satmasu Kopaviksha Lakshariteshu Surabhi Rabi Palayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Paramasevamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kavanantam Aravinda Talayataksham Parharvatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Gandharpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chantaka Lasa Vanamada Vamshi Ranang Kadam Panaya Keli Kala Vilasam Shamam Tripanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pasyanti panti karayanti chiram jaganti ananda chimmaya satujala vigrahasya govindam adi purusham tamaham pachami advaitam achotam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atma bhakto govindam adi purusham tamaham pachami Pantastu koti shatavassara sampragamyo vayurathapi manaso muni pangavanam sopyasti yappapada simya vichinta tatve govindam adi purusham tamaham pachami ekopya sora chayitum jakatanta kotim ya chakti rasti jakatanta chayaya tantaha antantarastha paramanu chayantarastham govindam adi purusham tamaham pachami Yad bhava bhavitadiyo manujastateva samprapya rupa mahimasana yana bhushaha suktaryam eva nikama patitai stuvanti govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami ananda chimmarasa patibhavitabhis tabhya evancha rupataya kalabhihi goloka eva nivasati kilatma bhutto govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Premanjana Churuta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sateva Hidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murtishu Kalanya Mena Tishtan Nanavatarama Makaro Puvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhava Paramapumam Yo Govindam Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis, who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years.
He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of our confit and sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of our bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the form of Rama, Narsimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions.
Sri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Bhagavad Gita, purport 7.1. Srinvatam swakata Krishna punya sravana kirtanaha hridayanta hi stohi abhadrani vidunoti suhrat satam nasta prayeshva abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayashay cheta eter anavidam sitam satve prasidati एवं प्रसन्न मनसो भगवत भक्ति योगतः भगवत तत्व विज्ञानम मुक्त संगस्य जायते विद्यते हृदय ग्रंथेश्चिद्यन्ते सर्वसमस्याः क्षीयन्ते च कर्माणि दृष्टा एव आत्मनीश्वरे.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, it is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
In this way, he naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come to at once to the stage of asamshayam, samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of God. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll continue Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Introduction. After visiting the temple of Kshira Chora Gopinada of Remuna at Balasore in Orissa, the Lord proceeded towards Puri and on the way visited the temple of Sakshi Gopala, who appeared as a witness in the matter of two Brahmana devotees' family quarrel. The Lord heard the story of Sakshi Gopala with great pleasure because he wanted to impress upon the atheists that the worshipable deities in the temples approved by the great acharyas are not idols, as alleged by men with a poor fund of knowledge. The deity in the temple is a Acha incarnation of the personality of Godhead, and thus the deity is identical with the Lord in all respects. He responds to the proportion of the devotee's affection for him. In the story of Sakshi Gopala, in which there was a family misunderstanding by two devotees of the Lord, in order to mitigate the turmoil as well as to show specific favor to his servitors, traveled from Vrindavana to Vidyanagara, a village in Odisha. Vidyanagara, a village in Orissa, in the form of his Archa incarnation. From there, the deity was brought to Katak, and thus the temple of Sakshi Gopala is even today visited by thousands of pilgrims on the way to Jagannath Puri. The Lord stayed overnight there and began to proceed toward Puri. On the way, his sannyasa rod was broken by Nityananda Prabhu. The Lord became apparently angry with him about this and went alone to Puri, leaving his companions behind.
At Puri, when he entered the temple of Jagannath, he became at once saturated with transcendental ecstasy. And fell down on the floor of the temple unconscious. The custodians of the temple could not understand the transcendental feats of the Lord, but there was a great learned Pandit named Sarvabhuma Bhattacharya who was present, and he could understand that the Lord losing consciousness upon entering the Jagannath temple was not an ordinary thing. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the chief appointed Pandita in the court of the king of Orissa, Maharaj Prataparudra, was attracted by the youthful luster of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and could understand that such a transcendental trance was only rarely exhibited and only then by the topmost devotees who are already on the transcendental plane in complete forgetfulness of material existence. Only a liberated soul could show such a transcendental feat. And the Bhattacharyas, who were vastly learned, could understand this in the light of the transcendental literature, in which he was familiar. He therefore asked the custodians of the temple not to disturb the unknown sannyasi. He asked them to take the Lord to his home so he could be further observed in his unconscious state. The Lord was at once carried to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who at that time had sufficient power of authority, due to his being the Sabha Pandit, or the state dean of faculty in Sanskrit literatures. The learned Pandit wanted to scrutinizingly test the transcendental feats of Lord Chaitanya, because often unscrupulous devotees imitate physical feats in order to flaunt transcendental achievements, just to attract innocent people and take advantage of them. A learned scholar like the Bhattacharya can detect such impostors, and when he finds them out, he at once rejects them.
In the case of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya tested all the symptoms in the light of the Shastras. He tested as a scientist, not as a foolish sentimentalist. He observed the movement of the stomach, the beating of the heart, and the breathing of the nostrils. He also felt the pulse of the Lord and saw that all his bodily activities were in complete suspension. Then he put a small cotton swab before the nostrils. He found that there was a slight breathing as the fine fiber of cotton moved slightly. Thus, he came to know that the Lord's unconscious trance was genuine, and he began to treat him in the prescribed fashion. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could only be treated in a special way. He would respond only to the resounding of the holy names of the Lord by his devotees. This special treatment was unknown to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya because the Lord was still unknown to him. When the Bhattacharya saw him for the first time in the temple, he simply took him to be one of many pilgrims. In the meantime, the companions of the Lord who reached the temple a little after him heard of the Lord's transcendental feats and of his being carried away by the Bhattacharya. The pilgrims at the temple were still gossiping about the incident, but by chance one of these pilgrims had met Gopinath Acharya, who was known as Gadadhara Pandita, and from him it was learned that the Lord was lying in an unconscious state at the residence of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who happened to be the brother-in-law of Gopinath Acharya. All the members of the party were introduced by the Gadadhara Pandita to Gopinath Acharya, who took them all to the house of Bhattacharya, where the Lord was lying unconscious in a spiritual trance. All the members then chanted loudly the holy name of the Lord, Hari, as usual, and the Lord regained his consciousness. After this, Bhattacharya received all the members of the party, including Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and asked them to become his guests of honor. The party, including the Lord, went for a bath in the sea, and the Bhattacharya arranged for their residence and meals at the house of Kashi Mishra. Gopinath Acharya, his brother-in-law, also assisted. There were some friendly talks about the Lord's divinity between the two brother-in-laws. And in this argument, Gopinath Acharya, who knew the Lord before, now tried to establish the Lord as the personality of Godhead and the Bhattacharya tried to establish him as one of the great devotees. Both of them argued from the angle of vision of authentic Shastras and not on the strength of sentimental vox populi. The incarnations of God are determined by the authentic Shastras and not by popular odes of foolish fanatics. Because Lord Chaitanya was an incarnation of God in fact. Foolish fanatics have proclaimed so many so called incarnations of God in this age without referring to authentic scriptures. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya or Gopinatha Acharya did not indulge in such foolish sentimentalism. On the contrary, both of them tried to establish or reject his divinity on the strength of authentic Shastras.
Later it was disclosed that Bhattacharya also came from Navadvipa area, and it was understood from him that Nilhambara Chakravarti, a maternal grandfather of Lord Chaitanya, happened to be a class fellow of the father of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. In that sense, the young sannyasi Lord Chaitanya evoked paternal affection from Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya was the professor of many sannyasis in the order of the Shankaracharya Sampradaya, and he himself also belonged to that cult. As such, the Bhattacharya desired that the young sannyasi Lord Chaitanya also hear from him about the teachings of Vedanta. Those who are followers of the Shankara cult are generally known as Vedantis. This does not, however, mean that Vedanta is a monopoly study of the Shankara Sampradaya. Vedanta is studied by all the bona fide Sampradayas, but they have their own interpretations. But those in the Shankara Sampradaya are generally known to be ignorant of the knowledge of the Vedantis, Vaishnavas. For this reason, the Bhakti Vedanta title was first offered to the author by the Vaishnavas.
The Lord agreed to take lessons from Bhattacharya on the Vedanta, and they sat together in the temple of Lord Jagannatha. The Bhattacharya went on speaking continually for 7 days, and the Lord heard him with all attention and did not interrupt. The Lord's silence raised some doubts in Bhattacharya's heart, and he asked the Lord how it was that he did not ask anything or comment on his explanations of Vedanta.
The Lord posed himself before the Bhattacharya as a foolish student and pretended that he heard the Vedanta from him because the Bhattacharya felt that this was the duty of a sannyasi. But the Lord did not agree with his lectures. By this, the Lord indicated that the so-called Vedantis amongst the Shankara Sampradaya or any other Sampradaya who do not follow the instructions of Srila Vyasadeva are mechanical students of the Vedanta. They are not fully aware of that great knowledge. The explanation of the Vedanta Sutra is given by the author himself in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. One who has no knowledge of the Bhagavatam will hardly be able to know what the Vedanta says.
The Bhattacharya, being a very learned man and could follow the Lord's sarcastic remarks on the popular Vedantis, he therefore asked him why he did not ask about any point which he could not follow. The Bhattacharya could understand the purpose of his dead silence for the days he heard him. This showed clearly that the Lord had something else in mind. Thus the Bhattacharya requested him to disclose his mind. Upon this, Lord spoke as follows: "My dear sir, I can understand the meaning of sutras like Janmadi Asya Yatha, Shastra Yonitvat, and Athota Brahma Jignasa of the Vedanta Sutra. But when you explain them in your own way, it becomes difficult for me to follow. The purpose of the sutras is already explained in them, but your explanations are covering them with something else. You do not purposely take the direct meaning of these sutras, but indirectly give your own interpretations." The Lord thus attacked all Vedantis who interpret the Vedanta Sutra fashionably, according to their limited power of thinking, to serve their own purpose. Such indirect interpretations of the authentic literatures, like the Vedanta Sutra, are hereby condemned by the Lord.
the mantras in the Upanishads in the Vedanta Sutra. Unfortunately, you do not take their direct meaning. You indirectly interpret them in a different way. The authority of the Vedas is unchallengeable and stands without any question of doubt. And whatever is stated in the Vedas must be accepted completely. Otherwise, one challenges the authority of the Vedas. The conch shell and cowdung are bone and stool of two living beings. But because they have been recommended by the Vedas as pure, people accept them as such because of the authority of the Vedas. Next. The idea is that one cannot say his imperfect.
The conch shell and cowdung are one. Sorry.
The idea is that one cannot set his imperfect reason above the authority of the Vedas. The orders of the Vedas must be obeyed as they stand, without any mundane reasoning. The so-called followers of the Vedic injunctions make their own interpretations of the Vedic
Injunctions.
Vedic religion.
Vedic injunctions.
And thus they establish different parties and sects of the Vedic religion. Lord Buddha directly denied the authority of the Vedas, and he established his own religion. Only for this reason, the Buddhist religion was not accepted by the strict followers of the Vedas. But those who are so-called followers of the Vedas are more harmful than the Buddhists. The Buddhists have the courage to deny the Vedas directly, but the so-called followers of the Vedas have no courage to deny the Vedas. Although indirectly they disobey all the injunctions of the Vedas. Lord Chaitanya condemned this.
The examples given by the Lord of the conch shell and the cow dung are very much appropriate in this connection. If one argues that since cow dung is pure, the stool of a learned Brahmana is still more pure, his argument will not be accepted. Cow dung is accepted and the stool of a highly posted Brahmana is rejected. The Lord continued, the Vedic injunctions are self-authorized, and if some mundane creature adjusts the interpretations of the Vedas, he defies their authority. It is foolish to think of oneself as more intelligent than Srila Vyasadeva. He has already expressed himself in his sutras, and there is no need of help from personalities of lesser importance. His work, the Vedanta Sutra, is as dazzling as the midday sun. And when someone tries to give his own interpretations on the self-effulgent sun-like Vedanta Sutra, he attempts to cover this sun with the cloud of his imagination.
The Vedas and Puranas are one and the same in purpose. They ascertain the absolute truth, which is greater than everything else. The absolute truth is ultimately realized as the absolute personality of Godhead with absolute controlling power. As such, the absolute personality of Godhead must be completely full of opulence, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Yet the transcendental personality of Godhead is astonishingly ascertained as impersonal. The impersonal description of the absolute truth in the Vedas is given to nullify the mundane conception of the absolute whole. Personal features of the Lord are completely different from all kinds of mundane features. The living entities are all individual persons, and they are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Whole. If the parts and parcels are individual persons, the source of their emanation must not be impersonal. He is the Supreme Person amongst all the relative persons.
The Vedas inform us that from him, Brahman, everything emanates, and on him everything rests, and after annihilation everything merges in him only. Therefore, he is the ultimate dative, causative, and accommodating cause of all causes, and these causes cannot be attributed to an impersonal object. The Vedas inform us that he alone became many, and when he so desires, he glances over material nature. Before he glanced over material nature, there was no material cosmic creation. Therefore, his glance is not material. Material mind or senses were unborn when the Lord glanced over material nature. Thus, evidence in the Vedas proves that beyond a doubt the Lord has transcendental eyes and a transcendental mind. They are not material. His impersonality, therefore, is a negation of his materiality, but not a denial of his transcendental personality. Brahman ultimately refers to the personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman realization is just the negative conception of the mundane creations. Paramatma is the localized aspect of Brahman within all kinds of material bodies. Ultimately, the supreme Brahman realization is the realization of the personality of Godhead according to all evidence of the revealed scriptures. He is the ultimate source of Vishnu Tattvas.
The Puranas are also supplementary to the Vedas. The Vedic mantras are too difficult for an ordinary man. Women, Shudras, and the so called twice born higher castes are unable to penetrate into the sense of the Vedas, and thus the Mahabharata and the Puranas are made easy to explain the truths of the Vedas. In his prayers before the boy Sri Krishna, Brahma said that there is no limit to the fortune of the residents of Rajabhumi, headed by Sri Nanda Maharaja and Yashoda Mai, because the eternal absolute truth has become their intimate relative. The Vedic mantra maintains that the absolute truth has no legs and no hands, and yet goes faster than all and accepts everything that is offered to him in devotion. The later statements definitely suggest the personal features of the Lord. Although his hands and legs are distinguished from mundane hands and legs or other senses, Brahman, there is never impersonal. But when such mantras are indirectly interpreted, it is wrongly thought that the absolute truth is impersonal. The absolute truth personality of Godhead is full of all opulences, and therefore he has a transcendental form of full existence, knowledge, and bliss. How then can one establish that the absolute truth is impersonal? Brahman, being full of opulences, is understood to have manifold energies, and all these energies are classified under three headings under the authority of Vishnu Purana, which says that the transcendental energies of Lord Vishnu are primarily three. His spiritual energy and the energy of the living entities are classified as superior energy, whereas the material energy is an inferior one, which is sprouted out of ignorance. The energy of the living entities is technically called Kshetrajna energy. This Kshetrajna Shakti, although equal in quality with the Lord, becomes overpowered by material energy out of ignorance, and thus suffers all sorts of material miseries. In other words, the living entities are located in the marginal energy between the superior spiritual and inferior material energies, and in proportion to the living being's contact with either the material or spiritual energies, the living entity is situated in proportionately higher and lower levels of existence. The Lord is beyond the inferior and marginal energies as above mentioned, and his spiritual energy is manifested in three different phases as eternal existence, eternal bliss, and the eternal knowledge. As far as eternal existence is concerned, it is conducted by the Sandhini potency, particularly bliss and knowledge are conducted by the Haladini and Samvit potencies respectively. As the Supreme Energetic Lord, he is the supreme controller of the spiritual, marginal, and material energies, and all these different types of energies are connected with the Lord in eternal devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is thus enjoying in his transcendental eternal form. Is it not astounding that one dares to call the Supreme Lord non energetic? The Lord is the controller of all energies, and the living entities are parts and parcels of one of the energies. Therefore, there is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the living entities. How then can one say that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same? In the Bhagavad Gita, also the living entities are described as belonging to the superior energy of the Lord. According to the principles of intimate correlation between the energy and the energetic, both of them are non different also. Therefore, the Lord and the living entities are non different as the energy and the energetic. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are all inferior energies of the Lord. But the living entities are different from all as superior energy. This is the version of Bhagavad Gita 7.4 to 5. The transcendental form of the Lord is eternal, existent, and full of transcendental bliss. How then can such a form be a product of the material mode of goodness? Anyone, therefore, who does not believe in the form of the Lord is certainly a faithless demon, and as such is untouchable, a not to be seen persona non grata fit to be punished by the Plutonic king. The Buddhists are called atheists because they have no respect for the Vedas. But those who defy the Vedic conclusions, as above mentioned, under the pretense of being followers of the Vedas, are verily more dangerous than the Buddhists. Sri Vyasadeva very kindly compiled the Vedic knowledge in his Vedanta Sutra. But if one hears the commentation of the Mayavada school, as represented by Shankara Sampradaya, certainly he will be misled to on the path of spiritual realization. The theory of emanations is the beginning subject of the Vedanta Sutra. All the cosmic manifestations are emanations from the absolute truth of God, absolute personality of Godhead by His inconceivable different energies. The example of the touchstone is applicable to the theory of emanation. The touchstone can convert an unlimited quantity of iron into gold, and still the touchstone remains as it is. Similarly, the Supreme Lord can produce all manifested worlds by His inconceivable energies, and yet He is full and unchanged. He is Purna, complete, and although an unlimited number of Purnas emanate from Him, He is still Purna. The theory of illusion of the Mayavada school is advocated on the ground that theory of emanation will cause the transformation of the absolute truth. If that is the cause, Vyasadeva is wrong. To avoid this, they have skillfully brought in the theory of illusion. But the world of the cosmic reason is not false, as maintained by the Mayavada school. It simply has no permanent existence. A non-permanent thing cannot be called false altogether. But the conception that the material body is the self is certainly wrong. Pranava, Om, or the Omkara in the Vedas is the primeval hymn. This transcendental sound is identical with the form of the Lord. All the Vedic hymns are based on this Pranava Omkara. Tattvam Asi is but a side word in the Vedic literatures, and therefore this word cannot be the primeval hymn of the Vedas. Sripada Sankaracharya has given more stress on the side word Tattvam Asi than on the primeval principle Omkara. The Lord thus spoke on the Vedanta Sutra and defied all the propaganda of the Mayavada school. The Bhattacharya tried to defend himself and his Mayavada school by jugglery of logic and grammar, but the Lord defeated him by his forceful arguments. He affirmed that we are all related with the personality of Godhead eternally, and the devotional service is our eternal function. In exchanging the dealings of our relations, the result of such exchanges is to attain prema, or love of the Godhead. When love of Godhead is attained, love for all other beings automatically follows, because the Lord is the sum total of all living beings. The Lord said that, but for these three items, namely eternal relation and God exchange of dealings with Him and the attainment of love for Him, all that is instructed in the Vedas is superfluous and concocted. The Lord further added that the Mayavada philosophy taught by Sripada Sankaracharya is an imaginary explanation of the Vedas, but it had to be taught by him, Sankaracharya, because he was ordered to teach it by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that Personality of Godhead ordered His Lordship Shiva to deviate the human race from Him, the Personality of Godhead. The Personality of Godhead was to be so covered so that people would be encouraged to generate more and more population. His Lordship Shiva and Lord Shiva said to Devi, in the Kali Yuga I shall preach the Mayavada philosophy, which is nothing but clouded Buddhism in the garb of Brahmana. After hearing all these speeches of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya was struck with wonder and awe and regarded him in dead silence. The Lord then encouraged him with assurance that there was no cause to wonder. I say that devotional service unto the personality of Godhead is the highest goal of human life. He then quoted a sloka from the Bhagavatam 1.7.10 and assured him that even the liberated souls who are absorbed in the spirit and spiritual realization also take to the devotional service of the Lord Hari, because the personality of Godhead has such transcendental qualities and qualities that He attracts the heart of the liberated soul too. Then the Bhattacharya decided to listen to the explanation of the Atmarama sloka from the Bhagavatam 1.7.10. The Lord first of all asked Bhattacharya to explain it, and after that he would explain it. The Bhattacharya then explained the sloka in a scholarly way with special reference to logic. He explained the sloka in 9 different ways, chiefly based on the logic because he was the most renowned scholar of logic or the logic of the time. The Lord, after hearing the Bhattacharya, thanked him for the scholarly presentation of the sloka, and then, at the request of the Bhattacharya, the Lord explained the sloka in 64 different ways without touching the 9 explanations given by the Bhattacharya. Thus, after hearing the explanation of Atma Rama sloka from the Lord, the Bhattacharya was convinced that such a slow scholarly presentation is impossible for an earthly creature. Before this, Sri Gopinath Acharya had tried to convince him of the divinity of the Lord, but at the same time accept he could not so accept him. But the Bhattacharya was astonished by the Lord's exposition of the Vedanta Sutra and explanations of the Atma Rama sloka, and thus he began to think that he had committed a great offense at the lotus feet of the Lord by not recognizing him to be Krishna himself. He then surrendered unto him, repenting for his past dealings with him. And the Lord was kind enough to accept the Bhattacharya. Out of his causeless mercy, the Lord manifested before him first as 400 Narayana and then again as 200 Lord Krishna with a flute in his hand. The Bhattacharya at once fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and composed many suitable slokas in praise of the Lord by his grace. He composed 100 slokas in praise of the Lord. The Lord then embraced him, and out of transcendental ecstasy, the Bhattacharya lost consciousness of the physical state of life. Tears, trembling, throbbing of the heart, perspiration, emotional waves, dancing, singing, crying, and all the 8 symptoms of trance were manifested in the body of the Bhattacharya. Sri Gopinath Acharya became very glad and astonished by this marvelous conversion of his brother-in-law by the grace of the Lord. Out of the 100 celebrated slokas composed by the Bhattacharya in praise of the Lord, the following 2 are most important, and these 2 slokas explain the vision of the Lord in gist. Let me surrender unto the personality of Godhead, who has appeared now as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the ocean of all mercy and has now come down to teach us material detachment, learning, and devotional service to himself. 2. Since pure devotional service of the Lord has been lost in the oblivion of time, the Lord has appeared to renovate the principles, and therefore I offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. The Lord explained the word mukti to be equivalent to the word Vishnu, or the personality of Godhead. To attain mukti or liberation from the bondage of material existence is to attain to the service of the Lord. The Lord then proceeded towards South India for some time and converted all he met on the way to become devotees of Lord Sri Krishna. Such devotees also converted many others to the cult of devotional service or to the Bhagavata Dharma of the Lord. And thus, he reached the bank of the Godavari, where he met Srila Ramananda Raya, the governor of Madras, on behalf of Maharaja Prataparudra, the king of Orissa. His talks with Ramananda Raya are very important for higher realization of transcendental knowledge. And the conversation itself forms a small booklet. We shall, however, give here with a summary of the conversation. Sri Ramananda Raya was a self-realized soul, although outwardly he belonged to a caste lower than the Brahmana in social status. He was not in the renounced order of life, and besides that, he was a high government servant in the state. Still, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as a liberated soul on the strength of the higher order of his realization of transcendental knowledge. Similarly, the Lord accepted Srila Haridasa Thakur, a veteran devotee of the Lord coming from a Mohammedan family. And there are many other great devotees of the Lord who came from different communities, sects, and castes. The Lord's only criterion was the standard of devotional service to the particular person. He was not concerned with the outward dress of a man. He was convinced only with the inner soul and his activities. Therefore, all the missionary activities of the Lord are to be understood to be on the spiritual plane. And as such, the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or the cult of Bhagavad Dharma has nothing to do with the mundane affairs, sociology, politics, economic development, or any such sphere of life. Srimad Bhagavatam is the purely transcendental urge of the soul. When he met Sri Ramananda Raya on the bank of the Godavari, The Varnashrama Dharma followed by the Hindus was mentioned by the Lord. Sri Ramananda Raya said that by following the principles of Varnashrama Dharma, the system of four castes and the four orders of human life, everyone could realize transcendence. In the opinion of the Lord, the system of Varnashrama Dharma is superficial only and it has very little to do with the highest realization of spiritual values. The highest perfection of life is to get detached from the material attachment and proportionally realize the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The personality of Godhead recognizes a living being who is progressing in that line. Devotional service, therefore, is the culmination of the culture of all knowledge. When Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared for the deliverance of all fallen souls, he advised the deliverance of all living entities as follows. The Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead, from whom all the living entities have emanated, must be worshipped by all their respective engagements, because everything that we see is also the expansion of his energy. That is the way of real perfection, and it is approved by bona fide acharyas, past and present. The system Varnashrama is more or less based on moral and ethic principles. There is very little realization of the transcendence as such, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected it as superficial and asked Ramananda Raya to go further into the matter. Sri Ramananda Raya then suggested renunciation of fruitive actions unto the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita 9.27 advises in this connection: whatever you do, whatever you eat, and whatever you give, as well as whatever you perform the penance, offer to me alone. This dedication on the part of the worker suggests that the personality of Godhead is a step higher than the impersonal conception of the Varnashrama system. But still, the relation of the living being and the Lord is not distinct in that way. The Lord therefore rejected the proposition and asked Ramananda Raya to go further. Raya then suggested renunciation of the Varnashrama Dharma and acceptance of the devotional service. The Lord did not approve of his suggestion also for the reason that all of a sudden one should not renounce his position, for that may not bring in the desired result. It was further suggested that by Raya that attainment of spiritual realization freed from the material conception of life is the topmost achievement for a living being. The Lord rejected this suggestion also because of the plea of such spiritual realization much havoc has been wrought by unscrupulous persons. Therefore, all of a sudden, this is not possible. The Raya then suggested sincere association of self-realized souls, and hearing submissively the transcendental message of the pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This suggestion was welcomed by the Lord. This suggestion was made following in the footsteps of Brahmaji, who said that the personality of Godhead is known as Ajita, or the one who cannot be the personal Godhead is known as Ajita, or the one who cannot be conquered or approached by anyone. But such Ajita also becomes Jita, conquered by one method, which is very simple and easy. The simple method is that one has to give up the arrogant attitude of declaring oneself to be God himself. One must be very meek and submissive and try to live peacefully by lending the ear to the speeches of the transcendentally self-realized soul, who speaks on the message of Bhagavata Dharma, or the religion of glorifying the Supreme Lord and his devotees. To glorify a great man is a natural instinct for living beings, but they have not learned to glorify the Lord. Perfection of life is attained simply by glorifying the Lord in association with the self-realized devotee of the Lord. The self-realized devotee is he who surrenders unto the Lord. The self-realized devotee is who surrenders unto the Lord fully and who does not have attachment for material prosperity. Material prosperity and sense enjoyment and their advancement are all activities of ignorance in human society. Peace and friendship are impossible for a society detached from the association of God and his devotees. It is imperative, therefore, that one sincerely seek the association of pure devotees and hear them patiently and submissively from any position of life. The position of a person in the higher or lower status of life does not hamper one in the path of self-realization. The only thing one has to do is to hear from self-realized soul with a routine program. The teacher may also deliver lectures from the Vedic literatures, following in the footsteps of the bygone acharyas who realized the absolute truth. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended this simple method of self-realization, generally known as Bhagavata Dharma. Srimad Bhagavatam is the perfect guide for this purpose. Above these topics discussed by the Lord and Sri Ramananda Raya, there were still more elevated spiritual talks between the two great personalities, and we purposely withhold those topics for the present, because one has to come to the spiritual plane before further talks with Ramananda Raya can be had. We have presented further talks of Srila Ramananda Raya with the Lord in another book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. At the conclusion of this meeting, Sri Ramananda Raya was advised by the Lord to retire from service and come to Puri so that they could live together and relish a transcendental relationship. Sometime later, Sri Ramananda Raya retired from the government service and took a pension from the king. He returned to his residence in Puri, where he was one of the most confidential devotees of the Lord. He was another gentleman at gentleman at Puri of the name Sikhi Mahiti, who was also confident like Ramananda Raya. The Lord used to hold beneficial, confidential talks on spiritual values, and therefore the Lord used to hold confidential talks on spiritual values with 3 or 4 companions at Puri, and he passed 18 years in that way in spiritual trance. His talks were recorded by his private secretary Sri Damodara Goswami, one of the 4 most intimate devotees. The Lord extensively travelled all over the southern part of India. The great saint of Maharashtra, known as Saint Tukaram Vama, was also initiated by the Lord. Saint Tukarama was, after initiation by the Lord, overflowed the whole of the Maharashtra province with the Sankirtana movement, and the transcendental flow is still rolling on in southwestern part of the great Indian peninsula. The Lord excavated from South India 2 very important old churches, namely Brahma Savita and Krishna Karnamrita, and these 2 valuable books are authorized studies of the for the person in the devotional service. The Lord then returned to Puri after his South Indian tour. On his return to Puri, all the anxious devotees of the Lord got back their life, and Lord remained there with continued pastimes of his transcendental realizations. The most important incident during that time was his granting audience to King Prataparudra. King Prataparudra was a great devotee of the Lord, and he considered himself to be one of the servants of the Lord, entrusted with sweeping the temple. This submissive attitude of the king was very much appreciated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The king requested both Bhattacharya and Raya to arrange his meeting with the Lord. When, however, the Lord was petitioned by his 2 stalwart devotees, he flatly refused to grant the request, even though it was put forward by personal associates like Ramananda Raya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The Lord maintained that it is dangerous for a sannyasi to be in intimate touch with the worldly, money-conscious man and with women. The Lord was an ideal sannyasi. No woman could approach the Lord even to offer respects. Women's seats were accommodated far away from the Lord. As an ideal teacher and acharya, he was very strict in the routine work of a sannyasi. Apart from being a divine incarnation, the Lord was an ideal character of a human society. His behavior with other persons was also above suspicion. In his dealing as acharya, he was harder than the thunderbolt and softer than the rose. As an ideal teacher and acharya, he was very strict in the routine work of a sannyasi. Apart from being a divine incarnation, the Lord was an ideal character as a human being. His behavior with other persons was also above suspicion. In his dealing as acharya, he was harder than the thunderbolt and softer than the rose. One of his associate, Junior Haridasa, committed a great mistake by lustfully glancing at a young woman. The Lord, as Super Soul, could detect his lust in the mind of Junior Haridasa, who was at once banished from the Lord's association and was never accepted again. Even though the Lord was implored excuse Haridasa for the mistake. Junior Haridasa afterwards committed suicide due to being dissociated from the company of the Lord. And the news of suicide was duly related to the Lord. Even at that time, the Lord was not forgetful of the offense, and he said that Haridasa had rightly met with proper punishment. On the principles of the renounced order of life and discipline, the Lord knew no compromise, and therefore, even though he knew that the king was a great devotee, he refused to see the king, only because the king was a dollar and a cent man. By this example, the Lord wanted to emphasize the proper behavior for a transcendentalist. A transcendentalist has nothing to do with the woman and money. He must always refrain from such intimate relations. The king was, however, favored by the Lord by the expert arrangement of the devotees. This means that the beloved devotee of the Lord can favor a neophyte more liberally than the Lord. Pure devotees therefore can never commit an offense at the feet of another pure devotee. An offense at the lotus feet of the Lord is sometimes excused by the material Lord, but an offense at the feet of a devotee is very dangerous for one who actually wants to make progress in the devotional service. As long as the Lord remained at Puri, thousands of his devotees used to come to see him during the Rath Yatra car festival of Lord Jagannatha. And during the car festival, the washing of the Gundicha temple under the direct supervision of the Lord was an important function. The Lord's congregational Sankirtana movement at Puri was a unique exhibition for the mass of people. That is a way to turn the mass mind towards spiritual realization. The Lord inaugurated this system of mass Sankirtana, and leaders of all countries can take advantage from. Sankirtana movement at Puri was a unique exhibition for the mass of people. That is a way to turn the mass mind towards spiritual realization. The Lord inaugurated this system of mass Sankirtana, and leaders of all countries can take advantage of this spiritual movement in order to keep the mass of people in a pure state of peace and friendship with one another. This is how the demand of the present human society all over the world. After some time, the Lord again started on his tour towards northern India, and he decided to visit Vrindavana and its neighboring places. He passed through the jungles of Jharikhanda, Madhya Bharata, and all the wild animals also joined his Sankirtana movement. The wild tigers, elephants, boars, and deer all together accompanied the Lord, and the Lord Sankirtana accompanied them in Sankirtana. By this, he proved that by the propagation of the Sankirtana movement, congregational chanting and glorifying of the name of the Lord, even the wild animals can live in peace and friendship. And what to speak of men who are supposed to be civilized? No man in the world will refuse to join the Sankirtana movement, nor is the Lord's Sankirtana movement restricted to many caste and creed, color, or species. Here is direct evidence of this great mission. He allowed even the wild animals to partake in his great movement. On his way back from Vrindavana, he first came to Prayaga, where he met Rupa Goswami along with his younger brother Anupama. Then he came down to Banaras, Varanasi for 2 months. He instructed Sri Sanatana Goswami in the transcendental science. The instruction to Sanatana Goswami is in itself a long narration, and full presentation of the instruction will not be possible here. The main ideas are given as follows. Hare Krishna. We'll end for today. We'll start from tomorrow. Thank you. Hare Krishna.